According to the FBI, he confessed to doing the triple murder we just talked about, and then he attacked the FBI agents, which is why they had to shoot and kill him. I think there was two things I think that really interested me about this. One was the obvious conspiracy theories surrounding it, involving the FBI, and number two was just the police ineptitude and hilarity that took place during these multiple encounters. Because these guys encountered the police multiple times. You've blackpilled me on the whole cop thing, man. Every time I see one of these stories, I start digging into everything the police fucked up on.
Yeah.
And there's always quite a bit there.
It's so much with everything. It's always police ineptitude.
So 2 pressure cooker bombs exploded 200 yards apart at the finish line halfway through the race ending. So half of the racers had already finished and the other half were coming across the finish line. Wow, you can see it has a lot of smoke, man.
Yeah, those had to be gunpowder bombs, right?
Yeah, I think they bought like M80s and just emptied them out. They killed 3 people here, including an 8-year-old child, and wounded 265, and that included 14 amputations.
14 amputations. Holy shit.
The first people they blamed was North Korea. Not sure why.
Why not? That's the question.
They're sort of a reclusive nation. They don't really travel much.
That would make sense though. Like a bunch of bottle rockets stuffed in a pressure cooker. Must be North Korea.
Goddamn Koreans. So it took about 4 days to identify the suspects, and there's been documentaries on this. They always do the montage here where it shows all of the internet sleuths on 4chan figure out who it was. I mean, it wasn't that hard to figure out though. One of these guys the FBI knew about already, and there's so much security footage. They seen him go to the marathon with backpacks and then leave without the backpacks, and then they knew who it was basically. After they figured out who it was, they put out an APB on these guys and tried to apprehend them. They went on the run. What they did was, it's 2 brothers, Tamerlan and Jahar Tsarnaev are the brothers. Tamerlan is the older. These are Chechen gentlemen, actually from, one of them was from Dagestan initially, and the other one was from Kyrgyzstan, I think, but they're Chechens by ethnicity. So they went on this crime spree. What's the Woody Harrelson one?
Oh, Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, they go Natural Born Killers. They shoot an MIT police officer on campus and try to steal his gun, what the investigators think they were trying to do. And they were unable to get his gun because of the security retention system on the holster.
Anything like a snap is considered active. On the inside of here, there's a little block that holds basically it goes in the ejection port to keep this gun from moving. That's what we consider more of a passive, okay? And how you work this holster, it's really easy. You basically take your index finger, you have one snap there, you have one snap here. You hit them both at the same time, okay, those are your active retentions. Then you have to rock it back, okay, to draw it. Okay, by rocking it back, you basically bypass what is known as the passive one, which is that internal block.
You can't pull it from the front. You have to rock it back as it's on your hip in order to draw the pistol. And so the investigators believe that they weren't able to get the gun from the officer, so they killed him to get the gun and then just ran away, basically.
So they did kill him. Why didn't they take his belt off?
I don't know.
That's guys.
But it sheds even more light on why are these guys so scared to get their guns taken when they're so hard to fucking take in the first place. Anyway, the next stop on their trail of crime was a carjacking. They carjacked a Chinese guy in a Mercedes, and they forced him at gunpoint to withdraw $800 cash out of his ATM. And then they went to buy junk food and left the guy in the car, and then he ran away from the car and went and dialed 911.
Damn ATM withdrawal limits.
They did escape this scene also. They got away, ran off. There was an APB on these guys on one of the vehicles, and they were stopped eventually in Watertown, Massachusetts. This was the first big shootout. An officer who saw them followed a short distance. He didn't flick his lights on right away because he was waiting for backup, but they did follow him a little bit. So what the brothers did, the Tsarnaev brothers turned onto a side street. They stopped the vehicle, got out, and started firing at the officer, according to the officers. And a shootout ensued. Another officer arrived very quickly, and then a bunch more started to arrive after that. There was a gun battle that ensued. The brothers, between the two of them, fired 56 shots. The police fired some 250 shots. Officer Richard Donahue was shot and almost killed by police crossfire.
In with another Watertown officer, Joey Reynolds, just ahead of him.
I come around the corner.
So this is the guy, this is the second officer that arrived on the scene.
This fucking tool with a spiked hair. Jesus, man.
He's talking about, it doesn't show the first officer, but this is the second officer here.
The street.
Sergeant John McClellan closes in with another Watertown officer, Joey Reynolds, just ahead of him.
I come around the corner and the bad guy's out, arms fully stretched out.
Reported shots fired at officers hunched up the vehicle.
Shooting at the windshield of
now listen to this.
Officer Reynolds' cruiser.
Shots fired at Watertown police officers.
The bad guy switches from Joey to me and takes one shot and puts it right through the middle of my windshield from about 120 feet away.
We need assistance immediately. Shots fired again. Shots fired again.
That's pretty good accuracy at that range with a pistol.
Here, I said, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. I jumped up, threw it in drive, and I just jumped down right here and I was following it. The
car's moving.
Car's moving and I'm following it like this and just shooting right in between here using the door as cover. So I probably took 12, 15 steps with the vehicle and saw the tree. I shut the door, I ran to the tree, and they think someone's in it the whole time. So you can see them shooting at it, you can see them throwing the bombs at it. And I'm like, I was like, geez, this is working. I'm like, I can't believe it.
I guarantee he did a ninja roll. He like shuts the door and he's like tries to do a ninja roll, but he's incredibly overweight, so he ends up landing on his flashlight.
Now a third Watertown officer, Sergeant Jeff Puglisi, responds.
And I fired 3 or 4 shots. I was positive I was hitting him, but he wasn't going down.
In more than 3 decades on the force, neither man had ever fired his weapon in action until this night.
Who did you hit?
Tamerlan.
Did he keep shooting?
He came charging up the street, shooting at me. So we're about 6 feet apart when he ran up that driveway.
You're shooting each other?
Yes.
6, 7 feet apart?
Yeah. I emptied my pistol at him, and in the meantime, his pistol ran out of ammunition. I didn't know if it jammed at the time or what. And he kind of looked at his gun, looked at me, got frustrated, threw the gun, hit me in my left bicep. And he turned, he ran down back onto the street, took a left, I chased after him, and I probably left about 4 or 5 feet in the air and came down on the shoulders and tackled him.
We had 8 bullets in him, and he was still fighting us. The only I had was my empty gun, and I pistol whipped him. I was trying to knock him out. I hit him as hard as I could, 10, 12 times. Couldn't knock him out.
These two, man.
He's been watching too many movies, trying to like pistol whip somebody and knock them out.
These two crack me up, dude.
Jesus.
Now what I did was,
What?
I put the car in auto drive, and I used it for
First
cover.
off, that accent should be illegal. That's the most atrocious, terrible, just assault on human dignity.
They were throwing bombs at the car.
They was throwing bombs at the car.
Then I ran and I jump kicked off a tree and did a flip. Fucking goobers, dude.
Yeah. Jesus.
That was the most excitement that guy had ever had in his life.
Oh, that's the story that he'll be telling till he dies. That's the one exciting thing that his kids will ever talk about that his dad did. You know, he was just the most vanilla guy his entire life, but he for one night he was a Winter Soldier, and that's how we're going to remember him.
So Tamerlan, the older, was apprehended, but later died at the hospital. He was so fucked up. One officer died after being injured by a homemade hand grenade. And as I said, another officer was injured by crossfire. Only one gun was ever recovered from the scene, although they used, according to the reports I read, they used 2 improvised hand grenades and 1 pressure cooker bomb in the fight. So they had 3 improvised explosive devices, basically, as well, that they used in that fight. The younger brother, Jahar Tsarnaev, fled the scene and evaded the police somehow. He was in a separate vehicle. I guess he got in his vehicle and they weren't able to follow him for some reason. So he took off. He was in hiding. They shut down the whole city for basically 12 hours. And they issued shelter-in-place orders, and then they started going door to door with the SWAT team. 12 hours later, there was an old guy who spotted blood on his boat, and he called the police. According to Boston Police Commissioner and the police chief, Jahar was in a gun battle with police for over an hour after they responded to the scene. So the police chief and the police commissioner both claimed that Jahar was firing at them, and they were firing back for the next hour. He was 20 years old at the time, the younger brother, Jahar. He's the one in the boat here.
Their own hundreds of agents and police responded to the scene, guns drawn.
And that's when the shot rang out. And I'm like, oh my God.
Shots fired, we have that.
More than 250 shots into the boat itself and dozens more into surrounding homes. This one missed a child's bed. Other rounds smashed into walls, vases, furniture in the homes of neighbors.
Hold fire, hold fire.
You know, I knew we had to stop that firing right away. And right away, I'm yelling on my radio, and I'm yelling to my guys, and they yell,
Hold fire.
hold your fire, hold your fire.
Hold fire, hold fire.
Number one, I didn't want him killed because we didn't know how big a cell and what information we had to gather. And number two, I knew I had policemen all around that boat.
I want all Watertown officers to pull back away from the house, now. All Watertown officers, stay away, pull back from the house immediately. That's all Watertown officers, pull back.
They're all like super worked up high school kids the first time they get a chick naked in front of them. Like they just can't control themselves. They just start spewing everywhere, just unloading bullets. Just, oh my God, I can't control myself. It's finally going to happen. I'm going to get to do something important, do something I can talk about with other people. And who cares if there's a baby nearby? Just start, yeah, freaking unload.
The funny thing to me is, like, they tried to make the officers sound so heroic. It's just a stroke of luck that they didn't murder some child in, like, a neighbor's house.
Isn't it always, though? It really, like, isn't it always just a stroke of luck that they didn't kill somebody?
Or another cop, or, like, you know,
yeah.
blow up a fucking gas tank somewhere or some shit. Jahar never had a gun. He was in the boat. They were just randomly shooting, and they just started fucking firing. One of the cops just started popping off, then they all started firing.
My goodness. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I would have expected, though. Like, so this was not the shootout for an hour that you were.
Yes.
Was
the
this?
Police, supposedly,
Okay.
according to the police commissioner and the police chief, he had a gun and he was firing back at the officers for an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was. But like initially, we were like, well, they only had the one gun, and the other brother threw it at the cop. So I don't know. I guess unless he got another one in the meantime, he would have been completely They didn't know that at the time, obviously, but
he never fired a shot though. He never initiated because he didn't have a gun.
So
So
where does that come from? Like, why did they start shooting, and why was that? Because I remember when he was hiding out in this boat. Like, I remember that news story going on. They're having this big standoff. Yeah, how did that come about? That they thought he was in there armed, or was it just like a story, an interesting
one word,
story
Tony,
to tell?
Bloodlust.
Bloodlust. Yeah, I get that.
Berserker blood, and when they get a little bit of rage, they pop off. That's why they beat up their wives and shit too. Probably can't control their emotions.
Why they beat up their wives.
They can't control themselves. They're violent fucking killers. They're elite special forces, and they need to flex their muscle.
To be fair, would you be able to stand the type of woman that would be attracted to a cop? She probably needs to get a good smacking around every once in a while.
Yeah, she knows what she's in for.
She knows what she's in for. You know what you're doing, lady.
Jahar was taken to the hospital after this standoff. He had gunshot wounds to his legs, his hand, his neck, and he had one through his face.
Only later did police learn that the man in the boat did not have a gun.
Who fired that first shot?
We still don't know. I can honestly say none of the Boston guys ever fired. I had good control over my guys at the scene.
Evans and his officers surrounded the boat as a robot was sent in to rip the canvas tarp off the top.
If they're able to successfully rip that off, he'll be fully exposed, okay?
We threw flashbangs into the boat, smoke grenades, and then eventually
He's just laying there, start throwing grenades in there.
Shot in the face.
He's moving, flailing about, quite a bit of movement.
they were able to talk him to get him to sit up on the boat.
The suspect in custody.
And then he was taken into custody, and 100% that's our guy.
The younger Tsarnaev was badly injured, but survived. As medics treated him, he asked what happened to his brother. They told him, "You will find out soon enough."
Job well done.
Job well done, guys.
Yeah. all the bootlickers out there. Yay, cops! You
did
shot
it.
up our whole neighborhood for no reason, but
Sorry about your homes, folks.
like Team America, where they just destroy Paris, and it's like,
Yeah.
no need to thank us. We got the terrorists.
That is literally American culture in a nutshell, man.
Yes,
It's so funny
Oh,
because it's
Jesus.
so true.
Yeah.
They shot 250 rounds into the boat where he was like dying in, and then started throwing fucking grenades in there, flashbangs. They had a helicopter that had infrared watching him the whole time.
Oh, I guarantee they had snipers up on rooftops. They had a sniper in a helicopter. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think that, well, this is before the Marvel movies. I was going to say, I think these cops watch too many Marvel movies.
What really got me was the robot. They sent the robot in to peel. They could have just like went up there and slapped him. Like, he was so fucked up. He's like he's writing a note. He writes a note on the inside of the boat because he knows he's dying.
Ooh. Huh. Do we know what the note said?
Yeah, it's just some jihadist shit. Like, I read a few Facebook posts about jihad or something. The older brother.
I guess that's pretty typical for a 20-year-old. If I were in that position at 20, I would have just like scribbled out some quote that I remembered from Nietzsche or something like that.
Yeah, they're
Maybe
Muslim, so that was their counterculture.
Yeah. Maybe some Pink Floyd lyrics, just for good measure.
So Jahar Tsarnaev was 20 years old at the time of the bombings. In 2013 was the bombing. He was charged with the use of a weapon of mass destruction and some other 30 other felony charges. Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and some other senators wanted him tried as an enemy combatant. This would void his right to an attorney.
Damn.
Alan Dershowitz spoke out publicly against this idea, however, and he was tried in a regular federal court. He was held in solitary confinement in a medical facility for the duration of his trial. He was locked up in solitary for 23 hours a day, and he was
Still
found-
better than county jails.
It depends.
County jails, you ain't even getting your hour a day in county jail, usually.
No, but you're not in solitary
You're
for
not
most of it.
For most of it. Sometimes you are.
Sometimes
you are. I did a week in solitary, didn't get out.
A week is a stretch in solitary, man.
It wasn't fun. That's for sure. I empathize with you, Jahar. I know what it's like, brother. Allahu Akbar.
He was found guilty on all 30 counts. I think they deliberated for like 2 hours or something. He was sentenced to death by a jury of his peers. May God have mercy on his soul. However, the First Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the death penalty conviction against him. The presiding judge didn't thoroughly question the jurors on whether or not they had prior knowledge of the case. And this took place in Boston, so obviously they fucking hadn't heard all about this. Clear case of Miranda violation, or I guess this would be a Miranda violation. But there was also a Brady violation involved. The presiding judge didn't allow evidence of Tamerlane's potential influence over his younger brother. Apparently in Muslim culture, I guess where they're from, the older brother is like the head of the household and basically bosses around the younger siblings. And the judge didn't allow any evidence, even in the sentencing phase of the trial, to try and get him out of the death penalty.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was a big case. I'm sure they already knew what the outcome they wanted was, and they weren't going to let anybody or any jurors deter them from getting what they wanted, which was, I guess convictions across the board and maximum sentence.
The case was appealed to the Supreme Court. It was granted cert in March 2021. This was a pretty big case. On March 4th, 2022, the Supreme Court reversed the decision and reinstated Jahar Tsarnaev's death penalty because our current Supreme Court is quite literally a gang of evil, sadistic demons and like killing people. That's my editorialization there. That's not a true statement of fact. In the dissent, Justice Breyer wrote that, quote, "This evidence may have led some jurors to conclude that Tamerlane's influence was so pervasive that Jahar did not deserve to die for any of the actions he took in connection with the bombings, even those taken outside of Tamerlane's presence." And even if the Muslim connection wasn't there, even if there wasn't this weird dynamic between older siblings and younger siblings, there's still an influence there. There's always that peer influence in any sort of group like that, man. The younger brother was pretty normal.
I don't know why that would matter, though, really. Either you're that easily manipulated to where somebody... I'm not looking at it from the, from the perspective they are of, retributive justice. I'm just pure threat to society. How dangerous are they?
When they come to sentencing, when it comes to like a death penalty case like this, there's things called mitigating factors. This could be a potential mitigating factor.
Sure.
He is currently on death row in a federal prison in Florence, Colorado.
Hanging out with your boy, Kaczynski, out there in Supermax.
So Biden has a moratorium on the death penalty, so he won't be executed for the next 2 years, at least, I guess.
Which is ironic, as we're going to find out.
Yeah. So there's this conspiracy around this case that was also pretty interesting to me. Tell me what you think about this. We'll go through this a little bit and let's see what your first reaction to it is. So the conspiracy goes, Tamerlan and Jahar Tsarnaev were FBI informants. According to his defense attorney, Jahar's defense attorney in the trial, him and his brother were recruited in 2011 by the FBI as informants. In 2011, there was a triple homicide in Waltham, Massachusetts. 3 men in an apartment had their throats slit from ear to ear, cut all the way down to the spine, almost decapitated the 3 men on September 11th in 2011.
Jesus.
This was 2 years before the Boston bombing. One of the men was a close friend of Tamerlan Tsarnaev. What they had done after they killed the men, they piled 7 pounds of weed and $5,000 cash from the apartment on the dead bodies before they fled the scene. Some actual...
Hang on. So these people got killed, nearly decapitated, and then people placed cash and marijuana on top of them?
It was their marijuana. I guess they were slinging.
So they had some pot at their house. The person goes there, nearly decapitates them, finds the pot and some cash, and then sets it in close proximity to the bodies before leaving.
No, puts it on the bodies. Piles it on the bodies.
Puts it physically on top of the body.
Correct.
Huh. This is incredibly odd. That's definitely somebody with an ideology that's doing that. You know, they're trying to make a statement and be poetic about it. You know, this is why the sins of this person will put on full display. And
yeah, what was that movie? Seven? Was that it?
Your sin is making people have the munchies and having a little bit of cash.
I am the hand of God. So after the Boston bombing, some journalists started investigating the Tsarnaev brothers. And they realized that Tamerlan Tsarnaev was a really good potential assailant in this 2011 triple murder. And in fact, there was tons of evidence linking him to the crime. And what was his friend, actually his best friend at the time, who was murdered, and his friends, the ones that got the weed put on them. There was evidence, there was cell phone data linking them to the area. Well, not linking them, linking Tamerlan specifically to the area. There were never charges brought against Tamerlan Tsarnaev, although he was in contact with the FBI at this time in 2011, multiple times according to relatives. The only thing the FBI ever admitted to, however, was that they had investigated Tamerlan at least twice in 2011. And supposedly, according to authorities, the Russians had informed the United States that he was a potential jihadist or potential terrorist, or he was a person of interest, basically. According to them.
Yeah.
So they were investigating that, and he was on some sort of list. They were given political asylum. The family was given political asylum in 2002 after their father was arrested and beaten for being a Chechen during the Russian-Chechnya War. The family was given asylum and moved to Massachusetts at that point. So that's one aspect of it, is the murder. The conspiracy theory is that the FBI knew that he did this murder, but they wanted to keep him as a valuable informant, so they didn't charge him with the crime. Apparently, it was pretty easy. There was like multiple journalists that found out right away that Tamerlan probably did this triple murder.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I could see, them looking the other way for obviously like a lot of lesser crimes. That seems a bit excessive, but who am I to underestimate the complete incompetence of police and the not even incompetence, like.
Well, for one, trolley problem, Tony. They were saving lives. Really.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
For two, they were selling pot, so they deserved it.
Okay, yeah, it's starting to fit now. everything's coming together. Makes sense. Yeah, let some guy that goes around cutting heads off, and I don't know.
James here, interjecting from the future. One interesting possibility that I hadn't considered at the time goes as follows. Perhaps the FBI murdered the 3 friends of Tamerlan, either as punishment for not informing for the government, or to create leverage against him to force him to comply with their demands by having these murder charges in their back pockets. Let us know what you think about this theory in the comments below. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
It's really weird. So nobody's been charged. Nobody else has been charged with the murders of those guys.
They couldn't figure it out, man. Cold case.
Yeah, I don't know.
And there's
It does seem awfully suspicious.
There's another interesting tidbit here. In 2013, shortly after the Boston bombing, the FBI, as part of this investigation, interrogated a Chechen-born man named Ibrahim Todashev at his home in Florida for 8 hours in an interrogation, allegedly. According to the FBI, he confessed to doing the Waltham murders, the triple murder we just talked about, with Tamerlan Tsarnaev. And then he attacked the FBI agents, which is why they had to shoot and kill him. This is a quote from Al Jazeera here. A violent confrontation was initiated by the individual, the FBI said, without providing further details. At this time, James Comey was FBI director, for some context. And we know him for his role in the Sami Osmakok case that we discussed previously. I think you covered that one, actually. They talked this poor Muslim kid into putting on the suicide vest that they gave him, and did this video and claimed that he was some sort of dangerous terrorist.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the big thing, right? That's how the FBI and the NSA and the CIA just justified their existence for the past 2 decades, is you get somebody to give up some dirt on some jihadis or supposed jihadis, and I mean, they could kind of ride that PR for a year or two.
Well, first of all, let me ask you this, because the actual interrogation here, this Chechen Ibrahim Todashev at his home in Florida, this was in a nice neighborhood. They interrogated him for 8 hours, no lawyer present, and then he suddenly attacks the officers. He's unarmed, I should say. And I believe there was 3 agents. There was 1 agent and then 2 state police present. Supposedly he attacked the FBI agent and they had to kill him. He was unarmed.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them. At his home during an interrogation. It seems very, very strange.
It does seem very odd. Like,
and then they claim that he confessed to these murders involving Tamerlan as well. Unfortunately, he's dead, so he can't ever.
And they don't have any recordings of it. So they went down there to. I'm assuming they go down there to interrogate him for 8 hours, and they're just they're going to remember it. They're just jotting it down, or.
That's a good point. Yeah, surely they had recordings of it. Surely
they had recordings, but we don't have those recordings. We're just relying on what they say the recordings say. The 8 hours thing, that seems just very odd. I could see maybe having a conversation with the police for 30 minutes or an hour, but sitting there for 8 hours answering questions with these cops and then just deciding out of nowhere I'm going to attack them or to have myself killed or attack them to get away. I don't know. It seems highly unlikely.
I don't think this was an interrogation, dude.
What I'm kind of getting is like potentially it could have been an interrogation. What was the agency that was investigating him?
It was an FBI investigation.
Okay. What I was kind of thinking was like, okay, maybe they go there and he gives some information that would look very bad on the agency, and then they kind of have to take him out. Maybe the officers going there didn't initially know what he was saying, and he gives information about, there's these other FBI agents that we'd been working with. They were well aware of X, Y, and Z. They knew that both of us were out committing these crimes, but they would just kept allowing it. And, they call in to Langley, Lieutenant, this is, we got this guy down here saying all this kind of crazy stuff. We'll just eliminate the asset. Okay. Yeah. So the guy attacks us, we kill him, and
End of story.
Lose the recordings. End of story.
If an individual is an FBI informant, then the FBI doesn't have to unseal those. They don't have to provide any records pertaining to that individual. They can, for history. There's no 20-year limit. There's nothing. If they have information about, for example, Tamerlan being an informant, we'll never know.
Yeah.
Unless the Proud Boys go in there and open the vault or whatever.
Get at it, boys. It's highly likely that they'd had some interactions, whether they were informants or whether they had just been having interactions unknowingly with FBI officers. One thing that I get from this whole case is that these guys weren't the brightest. Kind of from the get-go. There's a couple things I jotted down.
Definitely not.
Yeah, like the bomb, the way it was made, it seemed incredibly amateurish. This is somebody that didn't spend any time or didn't talk to any actual jihadi that had any experience in bomb making.
Well, that's not true. The reason the FBI were investigating them, or the reason the FBI had them on the list, was because they were visiting this jihadi website where they show you how to build improvised explosive devices, basically. And the pressure cooker bomb is pretty efficient, isn't it?
It's not nearly as efficient as an ammonium nitrate, and you get ammonium nitrate just as easy. The security retention, I don't know. The fact that they didn't have weapons beforehand.
Well, they had one gun, I think, but I think they were trying to get another gun.
I don't know. The Asian guy not being secured in the car.
They went in to get junk food and left him in there by himself.
Yeah, it just seems all really, really amateurish.
They caught him because his cell phone. They left the Chinese guy's cell phone in the car and they pinged the guy's phone. That's how they caught him in water
Jesus.
for the first shootout.
And yeah, so I don't know. What I'm kind of thinking is that like they probably had a lot of contact with people that they thought were jihadis, but I imagine based on knowing that this has happened many times before, that they were probably just talking to a bunch of FBI agents, and then when something like this actually happens and they do go out and commit an act of terror, the FBI would probably be inclined to not admit that they had been in contact with these guys and kind of directing them down the path of jihad, but not right to jihad for, a year or two prior. And then that these guys, kind of got out of control and ended up doing something. That would be a pretty embarrassing thing to happen for the FBI. Well, or whichever agency that, was guiding them along.
Definitely. If it came out that the FBI had an informant who had committed an actual terrorist attack, that they knew about this guy, but he did this attack, that it would make them look fucking terrible. Like they were completely incompetent.
Or if they were just like the On My Cock guy or whatever his name is, that they were setting him up to do a terrorist attack, and then he actually just went and did it.
Yeah, but they're supposed to prevent it.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
I think, first of all, the Ibrahim Todashev guy from Florida is definitely an informant. It's very clearly like they knocked him off because he knew some shit, or he was going to say some shit that was going to make him look bad.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's 3 of them, and they were all fucking armed. That was a fucking murder. Certainly. They murdered him.
Not after 8 hours. Like you're going to make your decision. What if I spend 8 hours in a room with somebody? It's because I'm comfortable with that person. Yeah. Like I'm sure there's a psychologist could explain that. Like you're not going to just at 8 hours decide to whatever it is that they're claiming that he did. Like I said, whether it be suicide by cop or whether he just tried to get away or actually was trying to kill him. I don't know. It smells like shit.
Yeah, it smells rotten, don't it? Plus, like any sort of, like any scenario like that, these guys are all these FBI agents are smelling their own farts, man. They're just waiting to swing on somebody. If this guy was starting to get rowdy, they'd have beat the shit out of him. They wouldn't have just pulled out a pistol and shot him.
Oh, yeah. His eyes start getting a little bit too shifty. They'll be like the other cop with all the mousse in his hair, just pistol whipping the shit out of him.
Pepper spray him and shit. As far as Tamerlan Tsarnaev, it could be, this is just theorizing here, but it could have been that he was an informant in 2011, but that maybe they didn't want to work with him anymore and they cut him off or something like that, or disavowed him or whatever they call it. He got mad at that point, decided to say, fuck it, let's go, let's do it. Let's do the damn thing. Could be a situation like that.
That's definitely.
Seems like.
These guys don't think I'll do it. Screw them.
The FBI has an unlimited budget. Probably 80% of all Muslims in this country are informants. So they know about most of them, especially the ones they grant political amnesty to. Anyway, it was the Florida, the murder of this potential witness to the triple homicide, and the triple homicide itself. Those 2 things to me smell a little fishy, man. Seems a little sus.
Yeah, it does. I'd never heard about the triple homicide thing.
FBI bars Florida from releasing Todashev autopsy.
What's missing? What am I missing here? This is like a child kidnapping case. This man is on the loose molesting children, and it appears that it's being lost in the paperwork of the agency.
Now they get you. They're under the goddamn